the initial reports, obviously, I'm in a reasonable echo chamber as a Man City fan, reading it online and seeing all the positivity. But then seeing the other side from the Premier League, it's confusing because they both can't be right. Someone has to be right on this. And I'll be amazed if City's claim about some of the verdict's been unlawful is inaccurate, because surely you can't just say that publicly, because then you're opening yourself up to a sort of lawsuit. Surely, I don't know. It's very complicated. I don't think it strikes me as both sides trying to claim a victory. Someone's trying to save face. I don't know who that is right now. I do feel a little bit as a City fan. It's more the interesting thing for me is more uh, how a lot of the evidence is public, and we've seen some of the statements, and we've seen some of the claims, and the Premier League's emails being used against them a little bit. I try and stay out of this a lot until the picture is very clear, because it's so muddy, and I think tribalism seeps through it all a lot. And I'm very aware of the picture that's been painted of a lot of City fans, how we're just batting for our team for the sake of it. And I think every football fan has a right in general to sit back and listen and wait and judge the picture when it becomes a lot clearer. And that's always been the stance that I've taken. And even away from, this just with the 115 charge and all that kind of stuff. And I've always felt very much like, well, I'll see when I see, and this is another case of that, where let's see what happens when it comes a little bit clearer. The thing for me that was interesting is I've always felt, and it sounds a bit tinfoil hat conspiracy theory, I know, but I think Guardiola implied as well that, he feels like in general in football, there are just people with interests. There's no enemies or friends. People are looking out for themselves. And I've always felt a little bit defensive of my club, because I do believe that City and Newcastle, they were new money. They were a threat to the bigger sides. Of course they were. There's just human nature to be aware of your challenges as a business. And United, Arsenal, Liverpool, these are big businesses, and City's rise was a direct threat to you know, their their current standing in the league. And I think we've seen it play out as they felt it maybe would do, with City becoming quite a dominant force in world football. So I've always felt in general, let's see how it goes, because as with anything in life, there is lobbying, there is politics, and football is intensely political landscape, because there's billions of pounds at stake. So I've always felt, look, I'm not going to judge my team until we see the bigger picture, because I do believe it's possible that these clubs are lobbying against my club. Of course they are, and it came out afterwards. That there has been, like, when Newcastle were taken over, a bunch of clubs, it's redacted, so we don't know who, did email the Premier League. So 11 clubs emailed the Premier League asking for a vote in 5 days to introduce a short-term ban on any related party transactions of any kind. Um, also applying to companies like those in the Gulf region. So essentially, it's come out now publicly, and this is a fact. It's in the transcripts, you can go and read it, that clubs, after a few days of Newcastle being taken over, try to sort of really restrict any deals for Newcastle from any businesses or related companies in the Gulf region, which is, of course, not just one country, it's the whole thing. So I guess the point I'm trying to make there is that I do feel it sort of shows that some City fans who feel maybe some clubs just don't like City's existence, and maybe there is more to it than meets the eye. Maybe some clubs are lobbying against Man City, and there's a lot of pressure on the Premier League to investigate City and all that kind of stuff. I don't think it's an unreasonable stance to take as a City fan, to feel that out to get is a bit, defensive, but that some clubs are threatened and will do anything to make sure that their standing is sort of safe. So my take from this whole thing is that it's complicated. There is infighting. These certain clubs will band together to go at other clubs, and that gets messy, because they're all banging heads against each other. As you've seen as well from the Premier League and City, they're all going to claim victory at all point, because so much of this is PR, so much of this is optics. And me as a City fan, look, I don't really believe any club plays 1 billion% by the rules. I think billionaire businesses, they may play by the rules, but they'll be creative for what they can and can't do. And I think this applies to them more than just Manchester City. I'm not stupid. I think, everyone is out to eke any advantage they can get out of a situation. And now, of course, City were claiming that it's come out something to do with Arsenal, uh, you getting £200 million of shareholder loans with 0% interest rates, which City will say that's not a fair market value. So what's going on there? So essentially, everyone is throwing mud at everyone. And this idea that City, to me as a City fan, are the big bad evil and everyone else is pure perfect. I think it's just silly. I think it's naive. And I think City fans, essentially, especially given the evidence come out that people do lobby against certain clubs and it's just sort of proven, I think it's come out that City fans have every right to feel a little bit defensive about their club and wait to see how it all unfolds. Because this idea that anyone is guilty before the trial or whatever, or that clubs, just because there's smoke, there has to be a fire, is also, that's not the real world, you know? So it's complicated and there's a lot of waffle there for myself. But I'm cautiously not optimistic. I don't know if that's the right word, but I am sort of waiting to hear a little bit more. And I do think people have to respect that City fans have a right to sort of wait and see the bigger picture because their club, every club is looking after themselves in this. And this idea that City are the only one doing that, I think it's just, yeah, naive.